So, hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Tran, and this is broadcasted from Hong Kong Baptist University, the Department of Government and International Studies. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, students. So, we are the fourth seminar in our GIS series on the COVID-19 Special Series seminar. And this is the last one of the series of four. And this is a two-voice seminar with Professor Laurent Sermet from Institut d'études politiques d'Aix-en-Provence in France. So Laurent is live with us from his beautiful house from Aix-en-Provence, south of France. So today our topic is about powers and society in the pandemic, a global and comparative perspective. And rather than research that we are presenting to you, we are going to introduce you to our baby research network, how it has started and the relevance of having a French-speaking research network in the context of the pandemic. So without further ado, let's start. Laurent, maybe you want to say a few words to start with?
Yes, thank you, Emily. My name is Laurent Sermet. So it's not the afternoon for me, it's the very morning, so I will best. So please notice that English is not my everyday speaking tone, so language. So maybe sometime I will have some difficulties and I'll ask to Professor Emily about the translation. I will my best, of course, in order for you and what we want you know about this daily research network we have created. Another word is that my colleague Jean-Michel Bell cannot join us today. He has so many things to do, so we have decided with Professor and Tran that we'll share the work to do. But of course, he's with us, and all what we are going to say has been done in collaboration with him.
Okay, Laurent.
Emily, for the
Yes, Laurent, thank you. I'd like to apologize to our audience here. I think the bandwidth is not too good today, despite our testing previously earlier in the week. So the voice is rather toned down and the speed is not too good. So just to summarize in two short sentences, this network was co-founded by Laurent Sermet, whom you see here, as well as Professor Jean-Michel Deval from Université Libre de Bruxelles in Belgium. Jean-Michel could not join us today, unfortunately, but Laurent and I are going to do our best to introduce the postdoc 19 to you. So Laurent, do you want to, let's see how it works, and then I can take over if the technology is not up to our expectation.
Yes, okay. So the main question to begin is the question, what SOC-19, what is that? It is a collaborative research network. At the origin, it was in March. Is it okay, Emily? Is it okay?
It is Kelvin pause a while. Let me double check the stream set.
Okay, Laurent, I'm sorry. Can we pause a moment, and our technician is going to reset the Zoom. So allow me to take over. This is supposed to be a two-people presentation, but due to technological issues, I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Laurent Sermet and on behalf of Jean-Michel Deval, who are the co-founders and the initiators of this postdoc 19. POSOC stands for Power Societies in the Face of the COVID-19. It is actually born out of the lockdown period in Europe, when the academics were wondering what they could do in this lockdown period facing such big challenges. So for our students here, Belgium is a French-speaking country of Europe, and this initiative started as a French-speaking initiative in Europe. And now I'm trying to advance my PowerPoint, which is not advancing. My PowerPoint. Okay. Good. So the postdoc 19 was born out of this lockdown, as I said, and the co-founders actually never met in person so far, although they have various and numerous communications. So as of today, the postdoc 19 is made of 270 plus people, scholars around the world, in the 5 continents, spread on over 47 countries in 140 universities. And those include, of course, all the overseas territories of France that are, of course, part of the French territory. We count numerous senior academics, but most importantly, as well as younger academics. Most of us are in political science and law, but not limited to those 2 disciplines. So you see, to sum up, postdoc is a research network comprising French-speaking scholars. Not all of us are French, of course, but we use French as a working language. So our basically values, we uphold French-speaking as a collaborative language. We also believe in a global comparative perspective, and most importantly, we believe in collaborative research. We are facing numerous challenges. First of all, the context. There is a huge academic competition, and we can all see that a lot of us are trying to publish something relevant to the current situation and related to the postdoc 19. So there is this publication race on a very urgent question. There is a risk with all these many publications out there of academic cacophony and how to discern, how to make sense of all those publications and research outputs. And also how we can manage such a huge network of 270 over people spread across the continents. Of course, as we say in French, l'argent est le nerf de la guerre. So what about financial support? How can we find money to support all our initiative, and how we can make postdoc from a soft network into something more institutional? So first question we'd like to address first, why is it a French-speaking network, and how relevant is it to have a French-speaking network? And here I'd like to share with you a few figures about the French-speaking community. In the world, they are, according to the International Organization for Francophonie, so the French-speaking organization, there are all over the world 300 million of French speakers, and our students here in the European Studies French stream are part of these 300 million people. So welcome to the huge community of French speakers. These organizations gather 88 governments and states, and French is the 5th language in the world for its number of speakers. They are across the world also over 100 million learners, and language on the internet. French is also a very useful language. So when you type search words in French, you have a whole load of search outputs that comes out to you. So that's why it's very important for us to maintain cultural diversity, and with cultural diversity to maintain French as a scientific collaborative language. But of course, within the network of Francophonie, there is also the Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie, that is a specific agency dedicated to academics and academic exchange in French. And here, it is also to promote French as a thinking, conceptualizing language for all disciplines. The strength, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. So now we move into the conundrum. The conundrum is what we say in French, a lovely word that is problématique. So basically, that what is our big research question, big research challenge. So we have this 2020 health crisis as a global context that has brought the world to anomie. Anomie basically meaning that everything has stopped, and it has become also a major threat to our economic globalized world system, and that was something that was presented in the first seminar by my colleagues here, Dion and Chris. So the health crisis is also contained within geographical areas, but also it has moved worldwide. So it started, as we know, in China, then moved to Europe, the United States, and other continents very rapidly. The health crisis has become, for some weeks and some months, our core one single unique problem. However, given the very various national context, as Giovanni Sartori put it, to compare is to understand better, and that is why our co-founders and this network have been initiated. All this together leads to one central question, that is, what is the impact of this health crisis? But for us, this health crisis is just one aspect of a more global crisis, and maybe that is exacerbating other more underlying existing crises, including the environmental crisis. And this crisis is there to help us test some hypotheses, formulate new paradigms, new ways of thinking the world, new ways of thinking the transformations of politics, societies, and law in our contemporary world. Of course, as we said, our challenge is about the governance, because how can we manage such a huge network of people who have in common their shared discipline of political science, law. So the governance is a big issue. This network was born, and it's a very recent network, just over 2.5 months ago, but it has immediately generated a huge interest given the number of members and commitments we have received. There is a coordination committee. So the founders were Professor Devel and Professor Sermet. Professor Sermet, who is with us from Aix. There is a small coordination committee in order to help out. It is a flexible network with what we favor, a horizontal type of governance over a vertical style of governance. So basically, we like horizontal type of collaboration, and we'll tell you more about how we work together. Just a few words about our methodology. So the language of communication is indeed French. And again, not all of us speak French or write French at the same level, but we want and we insist on using French. We bring together colleagues from different countries. We have said about their disciplines already, and we try to connect them in creating links. The idea is not to replace any other existing institutions or networks. The idea is rather born out of a context and to have this ongoing as long as it lasts. The preferred approach so far has been on a qualitative analysis. We haven't had interest nor will at the moment for any quantitative research. Now, let me talk about our two approaches. Our networks of 271 scholars are committed to two types of research approach. One that is a thematic approach, another one that is a monography. The thematic approach basically is a transnational approach comparing different countries, different national contexts, and the monographic approach is basically one case study on a particular country or region. So allow me to start with the thematic approach. We have Professor Deval and Professor Sermet as the co-founder, and along with the small group of initiating colleagues have devised these 6 thematic analyses along these lines here. So the first thematic analysis, so that is a transnational comparison. The first one is a multi-level anti-pandemic and anti-crisis policy. So basically looking and comparing how different states at the national, regional, and local level have enacted measures to fight against the pandemic, taking into account the public and the private stakeholders and the consequences of those policies, whether it has basically infringed some freedoms, the weight, the impact on public finances, reorganization of working lifestyle. Our students here have been doing a lot of online courses, so how it has reshaped our way of working. The second thematic analysis go into the lines of cultural specificities and discursive construction. So whether according to different cultures, different civilizations, or even different religions, there are different ways to approach the pandemic and to fight against the pandemic, and whether culture, civilization, or religion could have impacted or predefined the decision made by politicians, experts, and what have been the mechanism to produce basically the narratives. The number 3 thematic analysis is more specific to public health and health security policies. So what measures were taken by whom, whether they were enacted by politicians or rather by the scientific community, whether we have seen the influence of good practices, what has been of public freedom, what is the state of health emergency, and all these debates around the health policies, vulnerable people, decontainment measures, so what we are seeing at work at the moment. The number 4 themes is rather the crisis and geopolitical relations, so more the IR, international relations perspectives, and indeed this pandemic, as revealed by Professor Cabistan in our COVID-19 special series number 2 workshops or seminars, it has indeed great impact in reshaping the way geopolitical relations are defined. Of course, we have mentioned the case of China. We also mentioned the case of Trump and his Twitter diplomacy, for example. Number 5 themes is rather international and regional organizations and states, starting of course with the WHO, the United Nations, but also the European Union, African Union, and how all these regional and international organizations have put in place measures and how they situate themselves in this crisis. Last but not least, we also want to investigate the multi-level economic governance, the effect on globalization, and basically to debate about the relocation of production. So there has been a lot of talks about lesser reliance on faraway countries such as China in order to bring back production lines closer to the consumers. Also effects on unemployment, economic fragility of states and people. So those are the 6 thematic analyses, and the 271 scholars in the network have opted for one or more thematic analysis, and regularly our co-founders, our professors, Sermet and Devel, organized workshops that are specific to this thematic analysis. So you see, despite the lockdown, despite what we call the confinement in French, academics around the world have been collaborating very actively, finding new ways to collaborate and to do research outputs. Now, the other approach I was telling you about was the national one, and that is the monography. And the monography aims at basically doing an in-depth case study on a particular country or particular region, looking at these different questions here. And to illustrate this, there is a book in preparation at the moment, led by Professor Jean-Michel Deval in Belgium, to be published at the Université Libre de Bruxelles. And it is a monography with dozens of countries along the lines of comparing the medical health social measures, the place, the positions of the experts compared to the politicians, whether they work hand in hand or rather they dispute and they fight over policies and measures. The sanitarization of the law. So we talked about in the first seminar with Dr. Srebinski and Dr. Stivas here about the securitization of the law of the COVID-19, and here we talk about the sanitarization of the lawmaking process. Of course, we talk also about biopower. So at times of global challenges such as environmental challenge, global warming, pandemic, the scientific community is gaining a lot of strength. So can we talk about a overwhelming scientific community power, or maybe they are not overwhelming, and what is their place in the debate in the society? And of course, as we are now in the decontainment phase, the issue is what's next. So what lessons we have taken from these dreadful few months? So the output so far, Laurent, is the blog out already? Okay, I don't think, I can't hear you. We can't hear you, so
Turn on.
you should unmute yourself. Just want to hand over.
Est-ce que tu m'entends? Do you hear me?
Yes, yes. Is the blog on?
Yes, it is.
It is. It
The
was
blog
not.
is on. Yes, yes, the blog is on. It was launched yesterday evening. So
Okay, great news.
you have the opportunity to visit it.
Okay, so great news.
www.
Yeah, I'm sorry because the sound is still quite low, so we can't hear you well. But I'm happy to hear that the blog was launched last night. Indeed. So in output so far, we have a blog. So you can visit the blog, and the address here is on the slide. So this is a French-speaking blog on the COVID-19 with perspective, writings, research notes, seminars, webinars of all these 271 scholars across the world. So students, I'm sure that your French teacher might drag into this and look into some materials to share with you, so that don't hesitate to use as a resource. So we have this blog that was launched last night. We have conducted a number of seminars and webinars so far. And we have two upcoming, one on June 29 and another one on July 6. So June 29 is to prepare a special issue for the Revue Internationale de Politique Comparée. And the July 6 is really for the book I was telling you about, and you see here the long list of countries with one contribution by your humble speaker here on China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. And we have also a summer school upcoming with major European universities. So output so far, and now we are reaching towards the end of the presentation, but of course, as I have said previously, l'argent est le nerf de la guerre, so funding is most important, how we can move forward our wonderful ideas. And as of today, we have been working on 3 lines of funding through the National Agency for Research. So basically for those in Hong Kong, that's the equivalent of the RGC in Hong Kong for the French people. So this ANR is hopefully going to fund a symposium in Aix-en-Provence, as well as 3 seminars in 3 continents, in Africa, Asia, and South America, as well as a postdoctoral students and 1 admin staff, because as you can imagine, managing such a huge network, it's a lot of admin work. We have also l'Agence Universitaire Francophone, with whom we hope to ask some funding as well. And finally, with Laurent here, we are leading a PROCOR application. So PROCOR is a bilateral research funding for academic mobility. And this application is due actually next week. So it is well in preparation. So this is our funding. So to finish, rejoignez-nous. Rejoignez-nous in French means, what does it mean?
Join us.
Yes, thank you. Merci, Laurent. I love to hear your voice. So, rejoignez-nous means anyone who wants to use French as a working language for doing research, for reading research from others, do join us, the postdoc 19. So we are aiming to grow. The idea is the more the merrier. So we'd like to thank you all for your attention today. Should you wish to join, or should you wish to know more about this political scientist, law specialist, network, you can write directly to Professor Deval and Professor Sermet. And on behalf of both of them, I'd like to wish you all very good health for the rest of this year. Thank you. And the floor is open to questions. All right, questions?
Should I break the glass?
Yes, please, Professor Cole.
Laurent,
Laurent, this is Professor Alice Cole, the head of our Department of Government and International Studies, transfuge from Sciences Po Lyon.
Sciences Po Lyon. There you go. So,
Nice to meet you. Sorry for the talking.
That's okay.
The done were very good.
On a souvent des problèmes techniques. I'll speak in English, although our students here are wonderful because they're all, many of them are French language students, and so we should speak much more often in French. And this is a francophone network, which is great. My questions are more observations rather than questions. And I suppose in a way, what you've done here is quite remarkable in terms of the depth, in terms of the breadth at least. So. But I suppose that there's always some sort of trade-off. And I suppose here where you got 291 researchers with 6 key analytical themes, and I thought they were very well done actually. The 6 key analytical themes are really nicely done. I suppose really it's the problem we all face as researchers is how do we move from analytical theme to research design? You know, how do we actually manage to transform the problematique in a sense into a set of operationalizable projects. This is something we were talking about last week. We had another seminar, and it's clearly with matters as complex yet as important as COVID-19. You know, we're also thinking methodologically, aren't we? We're thinking, well, how actually do we do this? You know, are we using quantitative methods, qualitative methods, experimental methods, you know, so, and obviously myself, I'm giving a set of sort of possible approaches here, but I wonder whether, because Emily, you said in your presentation that there had not been a quantitative dimension to this so far, which of course is understandable, but I mean, how do you see, you know, is there an essential methodological plurality within the network? Do you have preference for particular approaches, or so? That's just general comment, really, rather than a question.
Laurent, do you want to address the comments? Hopefully,
we as Professor Tran said, we have begun with 2 main ways. One is of course, it is qualitative analysis. One is national analysis. We want monographic work. For example, what is happening in Hong Kong, especially in Hong Kong, with students and professors of Hong Kong thinking about the situation in Hong Kong. So this is first the monographic, the national understanding of the situation. And then, as Emily said, another understanding is transnational analysis. And we have drafted 6 groups. 6 groups. And for example, this afternoon, we are meeting the group number 5. This group is about the international level of the understanding of the COVID crisis. I mean, how the United Nations do cope with United Nations, I mean the General Assembly, the Security Council, of course the WHO. So we have national and transnational approach, and it's based on qualitative analysis. But of course, what you say, you know the network has been done. The work we've done in 2.5 months. So we were 2. At the beginning, we were 2. Professor De Waal and myself. Professor De Waal is a politist professeur de sciences politiques. I'm a lawyer, international law lawyer. So we need the help, and Emily did help. She joined the advisory committee, but on avance en marchant. Excuse me to say it in French. We go forward as walking. Et on résout tous les problèmes. We try to solve all the problems we have every day. Mais vous posez une question essentielle. Comment? How will we cope to have a federation of all those energies? Methodology, please speak to me. You're right. Pour l'instant, nous sommes à titre expérimental. We have a question. Is this crisis a superficial one or an in-depth one? We have this main question.
Actually, hi, I'm Kang Yi, Emily's colleague in this department, and I work on comparative politics and mainly in Asia area. Just follow up with Professor Koh's comment, and I do think this project is this network is really remarkable and great. So I think it can generate a lot of really good data if all the members of this network try to contribute, in their area and their part, like collect data separately, but concentrate in a way which can not only benefit the scholars within this network, but with the open access of those data in the future, maybe open also to the non-French speaking scholars like me. So I think the more practical way of thinking of implementation is maybe what kind of data different scholars try to collect in different regions and different areas, and how to put them together and generate real data sets in different theme area. And that will be a really big contribution, a really significant one. So I think there are a lot of good things, but they are quite broad things. And to implement that, the more important thing is to think about the really, for example, the legal documents on certain topics, and maybe the qualitative, like dispersive analysis. So in which particular area, like diplomacy or domestic, maybe post-disaster learning. So also, I think with such a great network, actually, it will be a pity if no quantitative data is collected. For example, survey data. Since it's such a broad network, like kind of a little bit survey data collected everywhere and then combined together. So I can foresee that this network really can generate a lot of important and different types of data sets, which can be a huge contribution to the field. Yeah.
Thank you, Connie. Laurent, do you want to address Connie's comments?
Yes, I would like to give some answers, because you said a lot of very interesting, you did very interesting comments. To begin with the French speaking. Yes, it is a French speaking, but of course it's not an non-English speaking, of course not. And this is today with Emily, the first presentation, and we try to do, with the difficulties of the technique, we try to do, and we do it in English. So we are not close to French, of course, and many of the members of the network do not have French as first language, maybe second language. And if I take the case of Emily, she's both English and French. I take another colleague from Moscow. She belongs to the Academy of Sciences. She is directrice de recherche, research director in anthropology. And when she discovered the network, she said to us, it's very good that the French language can be used between us, in the sense of, if everything is done in English, it is a matter of appauvrissement. How would you translate Emily, appauvrissement. It's only, you know that in Hong Kong, any languages there. So that's the first answer I would like to give. Second, about the data. I have done a work about the items that could be filled for the monographic work, and this work I have done is very precise about what we have to inform, what we can inform on a national or a territorial situation. So if you wish, I can via Professor Emily Tran send you this file for the monographic work, and you will see that there is something very precise, but maybe too precise. Imagine we have 271 colleagues from all over the world, the 5 continents. Oh, everyone is working with his own agenda, with his own speed. It's not easy. It's not easy to construct something in common. But there is something. And about the another element I would like to give is about what we are doing now with Professor Alistair, with you, colleague, sharing ideas. What the very purpose of this network is about everyone bringing something on the table. And this is the very notion we have about collaborative methodology.
So if I just can supplement here, the blog is precisely the data set, the place, the platform where each individual, according to its interest and angle, can write something, a long or short research note. And I should not say this in front of our students, but Google Translate does marvel, you know. So you can actually translate the whole site into English, and from French to English, it does work quite well. So if you are in a search of information about because it will take some time for you to learn French, but if you want to read about what has been happening in Africa, Southern America, compare crisis management in all these countries, because this is your field, then you have ideas here and with lots of references as well. Okay. So
in order to give another element, I remember we were looking for information about what's happening in the countries. It was 1 month ago, and a colleague from Mauritius, the Dean of the Faculty of Law, sent us the law about the crisis, the state of emergency during the crisis. It was very nice to recevoir, to receive this statute, you know, very easily via the network.
So the idea, if you have specific questions on specific countries, we can relay them on the network. And those people can just share the available information.
Actually, that's my suggestion. And also, you know, I think it will be a really good contribution of the network is that we have more specific, for example, like variables and more specific questions. Like question is still, it's a little bit abstract level, but you can just down to the level of you have the specific variables and collect data on those variables. And that will generate really good data sets for comparative analysis.
Okay, thank you, Konya. Very good suggestion we should think about.
Our students.
Maybe just like, is it French something like an asset? Because you were talking about the huge the challenge of this COVID fashion, huge competition in the academic. Is like publishing in French is a way of being more seen in this like ocean of articles, or this is something you think, do you think French language can be useful in this way?
Laurent?
I think French language will help many colleagues from all over the world, in South America, in Africa, in Eastern Europe, to be visible. And those colleagues, maybe they can also publish in English, maybe in Spanish, maybe in Russian, but I think the more we use different languages for scientific purpose, for academic purpose, the best it is. I think for many colleagues, the blog, we will see, we will test. The blog will be a good test. Will colleagues publish their article on the blog? Will they give confidence to the blog? We'll see. We have already about 10 articles on the blog. So we have launched it yesterday. We're working on it since 2 weeks, and we have already about 10 articles. We'll see, in French, we'll see. But about the competition, when I did work this sentence for the presentation of today, the competition is very strong here in France. In France about the COVID, every review, every book, everyone is talking about the COVID. It's maybe too much. When we had the ideas, we were maybe the first. No, not the first, but we were a few. And maybe today, so I think maybe the question of language has also to be compared with the question of cacophony, doctrinal cacophony.
Yes, to supplement maybe Laurent's answer to my colleague Céline Diaz, who is in the French Stream program as well, Laurent. I would say that it is also a statement to show our links to a language and to a culture and to a community. So in my case, for example, as I have told you, publishing is in French is not necessarily seen as an asset. But however, I'd like sometimes and from time to time, not too often, do that because as the coordinator of the European Studies French stream, I think it's important for me also to continue publish or be visible in a French language. So it is also a part of positioning the cultural diversity that is very much dear to me.
Can I intervene, Chair? I think the Revue Internationale de Politique Comparative, which was referred to, is an excellent review. I published twice in the RAPC, and it's true that the standard of refereeing for the articles was just as high as in any Anglo-Saxon review, to use the word. And so, in fact, the RAPC is an excellent review, and it's well regarded amongst comparativists. Of course, it's in French. So what? I mean, in a way, it's a challenge to write in French. Particularly, the last piece I had in the RAPC was about La Wallonie. So it was about Belgium. And it was my colleague Christian de Vicher from Louvain-la-Neuve. And that was actually a really, really tough one because we did a special issue. It was Cole de Vicher and Pasquier. We did our special issue on La Crise et les Régions, that's right, in 2016. But that whole process for the RAPC was a very, very tough one, actually. It was just as tough as the reviews that we're all encouraged to publish in. And I think, you know, as a Brit who's worked in France and now working in Hong Kong, I mean, I do think actually that in the French-speaking community there are some excellent scholars. There are also some weak scholars. You know, it's a community. This is the point. But it's, I mean, I think it's true that amongst the French speaking political science community, there's diversity, and so there should be. I mean, someone who would publish in the REPC might not publish in politics, for example, just to take two French reviews. And someone who will publish in, so I think, you know, playing, I would say from the outside, well, with the foot in, but playing at La Francophonie is a good idea, but also playing on the diversity that can exist within La Francophonie. Because it's very clear, I mean, you know, I think the intellectual traditions in different disciplines are different. Clearly, in the French context, droit public et sciences politiques, dans les Sciences Po, we know that there's a tradition of some rivalry, maybe. So I think, in a sense, what's interesting with your network is clearly you're covering a lot of ground and you're bringing in some very interesting problematic and researchers. But I think diversity within a language is actually also something to be celebrated. But it's not just saying this is the Francophone way, hence it's different. I think you can say, well, actually, what's interesting are, you know, why can some people only talk about Foucault, for example, and others never get away from Bourdieu? I mean, this has always struck me from the outside. You know, fascinating actually, Foucault and Bourdieu. But I think in a sense you can, you know, the diversity within the Francophone world, if you like, is just as interesting as its commonality in a sense. And so that was it was a statement rather than a question, I might say. But it struck me because I was in five years in Sciences Po Lyon. And really in Sciences Po Lyon, it will be like in Sciences Po X, there's lots of different colleagues, les juristes, les politistes, les historiens. And I think in a sense, I was struck by the great diversity of work taking place in the Sciences Po, and you know, as would expect in any community. So my question, and maybe it's a question to you, Emily or Laurent, is: does the fact of being francophone mean that there's I mean, is there something epistemologically and ontologically sort of inherent about being francophone, or is it actually is it a common shared means of communication which allows a great diversity of different viewpoints?
Okay, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Deepa Chakravarti from India.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Deepa.
And it's very, very nice, you know, to connect with you in this way, because rarely we get an opportunity to talk with each other. And I think, you know, publishing in French is something very, very important for us. We are a community of French speakers and French teachers, actually. So, in fact, I am there, and my colleague Nilanjan is also there, who will be contributing to this postdoc 19. And, you know, getting published in French for us is something extremely important, because being French teachers, les professeurs de français très expérimentés, nous trouvons très rarement la possibilité de publier nos articles en français. Donc, pour nous, c'est important de pouvoir exprimer en français, parce que l'Inde, c'est un pays anglophone. Donc, on est entouré de gens qui parlent toujours en anglais, en hindi. Et comme un département de langue française, en fait, pour nous, c'est une belle chose de pouvoir participer à ce, comment dire, postdoc 19. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup pour votre témoignage. So for those of us who are listening and who are not yet French-speaking persons, this was a person, a scholar from India, who is that is not actually a French-speaking country. However, there is a big community of French-speaking people, including French teachers, and they do appreciate this great opportunity to exchange in their discipline with other scholars across the world in a language that is not their primary language. So thank you very much
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Yes.
I would like, Deepa, very nice to meet you. We had some exchange.
Enchantée, en fait. C'est la première fois parce que moi je suis en contact avec Dovalé et vous savez bien qu'il y a un autre collègue de Calcutta qui, oui, mais on n'a pas pu quand même contacter ce monsieur qui en fait, bon, donc il n'est pas de langue française, anglophone, Calcutta. Et c'est un avocat ou je sais pas, c'est...
Deepa, I would like to answer your question in English for the
Yes, yes.
audience. So I'm very glad about your testimony, about your point of view, your analysis. What I think very, very important in what you said is that you speak English, you speak Hindi, you speak English, and then you can bring something in French. That is the collaborative methodology. I can never understand Hindi, of course. I speak a bad English, but all together we bring something on the table, of course. And I think this is very, very important. And now to Alistair, I would like to answer the following idea. Francophone is not French. Francophonie is huge. Is huge, and we have so many resources all over the world about people having a link with the French culture, yes, but having their own culture, a mix of culture, and Francophonie allows us to go into République démocratique du Congo, to go to Congo, to South Africa, to Madagascar, to Hong Kong, and so on and so on. This is very, very rich.
You were asking whether it was an epistemological position to publish in French or just a shared language, a working language. And I do believe it's both. And I see the difference when I read a political science article in French and a political science article not written in French, but within the English community there is also diversity.
Sure.
Political science article written by an American scholar is very different from continental Europe. So we do have, the language does format somehow our thinking, our framework. Yeah.
It's a good answer.
It's an answer, thank you. Do you have questions, Terence? No questions? Okay. Students, do you have questions? So I think we can maybe call to a close.
To pause café.
Okay. So anyway, thank you to our audience, and I'm really glad that despite some technological issues, we managed to reach out to India, that Postdoc 19 do have members from India that they have been following us. So thank you very much, Laurent. You want to say something?
There are 3 members from India.
Okay, there are 3 members from India. All right. So by the way, Laurent, you see the poster on the screen. We prepared the poster 1 month ago, and it was written 170 French-speaking scholars. And today, in our PowerPoint, we reported 271. So this is to show you the growth rate of this network. So thank you very much, Laurent, for being with us and for your patience. I hope I translated well your thoughts. Thank you for handling the questions despite the distance.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you.
Peut-être que nous pouvons faire un Skype. Dis pas, peut-être que nous pouvons faire un Skype.
Yes. Offline, we can do that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you to every student attend.
Okay, so here was the 4 workshops, and the last workshop of the GIS department of the year. We had a very enjoyable and happy summer, and we look forward to connecting with you again physically and online for another exciting academic year filled with many other conferences and seminars from the dynamic Department of Government and International Studies from HKBU. Bye-bye, everyone.